What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports Morning Show. I'm your host, Mangone. I am here with Toe Tag and Tambo. Tambo had himself a nice little weekend in the PGA streets. We're going to review his lineup from Showdown. Obviously, the major, we talked about it a lot, talked about the AM, PM stack and all the good stuff that can come from it. So we're going to be talking with Tambo here. We'll talk about some of his, process for the Showdown. And then at the end, and we'll probably talk about little preliminary pricing, nothing crazy. I know Tambo has got some good tidbits on his Twitter. So if you haven't followed him on Twitter, feel free to go follow him over on Twitter. But hey, Tambo, let me bring you in. How is it going? And how are you feeling adding 100 extra sticks to the wallet? Actually, 125 because you also took down second place.
Yeah, it feels good, man. Appreciate you having me on. I got to come on here last week with Big T. You'd be the host. I got to be you, man, going. That was fun. We broke down some of the slate before the results came out. And this was great, man. It felt good to finally, I'll say for this season at least, get over the hump. I've had a lot of podium finishes, I guess. The 555, I come second, third, eighth, at the King of the Beach for NFL, I got second. I've been trying to get that first place. And it's been a while, so it definitely felt good to not only get first, but also second. Crazy sweat down the stretch. But regardless of if there was an AM, PM wave, people want to talk about it. I think there was on the main slate. There was most certainly an edge on the round 2 slate. We talked about it on the Mail Media Network and then put it to full fruition. I had 50 lineups in the $20. That's all I ran for the day. Played the weather angle completely, and the morning started off very slow. So I thought maybe we'll have something here. And then the afternoon just completely slowed down. I think it was Willie Zalatoris who said at hole 10 or 11, he said it just, we had zero wind basically. And they just got to go out and it was a scoring fest after that. And it ended up working out pretty nice. So excited about that one and right back to the grind, like you said, for Charles Schwab this week.
Yep. Obviously we have a pretty good event too. I was pretty surprised. I pulled it up and I was like, man, this has got more players at the event than I realized. Cause sometimes players take off. Actually, quick question is JT, did he pull out yet? Or is he still playing in the event?
No, he's playing. He was actually on a podcast last night as well, said he's got to get right back to work. He was joking about, he's Alabama guy, so talked a little bit about Nick Saban, but took a shot, I believe, at Clemson there and said, I don't know what their rule is, but I've got the Saban rule, 24 hours to celebrate, and we're right back to it. And then Rob Bolton, the guy that we all follow on Twitter for the WDs, said that a lot of these guys already have this set up this way because it's not that far down the road. So they'll go out and play it. JT has won back-to-back before on tour. He's had pretty good results after majors in the past. So if people are not going to go there, it is a bit of an interesting topic with Scotty right above him off a miscut. Bad weather wave, though. I think people can forgive it. And then people just usually not liking to play a winner after they win a big event, especially at a high price tag. So JT could be interesting for this week.
All right, well, let's dive in. Let's kind of review your lineup. I know we got to get out of here a little bit earlier because Tambo's got something to do, but happy to have him here and talk about this lineup. So Tambo, break it down for me. So the first thing, I want to talk about the first team. So we'll show both of them. You got Spieth, Zalatoris, Burns, Cam Young, Hatton, and Mito. The key with this, you can explain to the people if they don't know, but you can explain the wind and everything that was going on and how you stack the tee time. You can go into detail on that. But one thing I thought that was interesting was the ownership on this. Typically, let's give Hatton 0.03%, make him 10%. He basically is, right? It's rare you see a team ship that's just all guys above 10%. It's definitely a different thing to see. And then your other team has Bubba Watson at 2%. So I thought that was interesting that this other team is just a lot more ownership than the second one. When the second one looks like, if I just showed you the ownership percentages, I'd be like, oh, that's the team that shipped, that team in second. So I thought that was really interesting just looking at your teams with that. But talk about the tee times and the advantage you had, because you guys talked about this on the Mayo Media Network when you broke it down on the Showdown show.
Yeah, it's really everything to a T that we talked about. So it was clear going into the event, the AM, PM looked like it had an advantage. But even if you didn't believe that and didn't roll it, there's no chance to change it after classic slate locks. But for round 2, it was quite simple. The PM definitely looked like it had the advantage. When we woke up that morning, it was in the Discord at Run Pure Sports. You guys can get over there and check it out. I think we still got a code going, PGA 50. I would recommend that. But in the Discord, I said a couple things. I'm sticking with it. I said, I've got 32 guys in my pool. I'm playing them. One of the biggest things, though, Mangone, you did just talk about the ownership. I think that's a key. If you notice, and I love how you brought it up there, look at the cap space. That's the kicker. So it doesn't matter that I had a little bit higher ownership. First off, Xander and Cam Smith were also pushing 40%. So one of the key things was to make sure I didn't have Willie Z, Cam Smith, and all those guys mixed together. And so I separated them some. And then the other thing was just leaving money on the table, which we talked about it. when it's a wave stack or anything like that, the salary to me means nothing. Like you just play it with it amongst your 50. And that's why someone asked me like, oh, I thought you maxed it, or why didn't you play 150 if you thought you had the edge? Like for me, the 50 lineups is all I really wanted to play. And I thought that I could get there with the 50 based on already being unique enough and being willing to leave money on the table. I didn't just want to make 100 more lineups of some one-offs or 2v2s of 1% guys that I actually didn't really like for the slate. So I was able to do it quite easily with just using 32. So biggest thing there that you're seeing is cap space left over and not using the 3 highest owned guys together. That was the differentiator.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely smart by you. One thing I think is smart is like separating guys like you did. I think you can I think for instance, like in the NBA Showdown, I'm not saying like you have to do this, but one thing I think you can do that's pretty smart is like, I'm sure you played yesterday's Showdown slate for NBA, right, Tambo?
Yep.
All right. So like, let's say that you like Jimmy Butler, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum. All you have to do is a lot of the teams, they plug all 3 on them, right? Like all 3 get thrown on them. Well, if you make it where it's a max of 2, well, that could make, I mean, it's not going to make every team unique, right? You could be really unique if you make it a max of 1. But the point I'm getting at is there's like slight ways to make yourself unique amongst your teams with where you don't have to like fade everyone. You know what I mean? You had your fades, right? You had your 40% fades. You knew you were not going to play. And then you just kind of group guys away, which I think is a great strategy. Is that kind of some of what you do in golf? Like, do you do that on just showdowns? Do you do it on every slate? What's kind of some thought process there?
I do it on a lot of slates. Typically where I'll do it though most is something like a birdie fest, where I think there actually is no difference. Like you've seen it plenty of times where like a $6,500 guy can outscore a $9,100 guy. And it's just like, everyone thinks you have to have them because the Vegas odds say it or whatever. Like, I just don't care. If I'm already stacking for the scoring in that sense, it doesn't matter to me. You have no idea. No one does. So we give educated guesses, we give strategies, we give theories, but at the end of the day, it definitely happens all the time. So I'm not really scared of that, especially in Showdown. But like to your point, that ties back into this from last night's NBA. You can keep all those 3 guys together and still be unique if you leave a bunch of salary and you use somebody that's off the board, like a Neesmith last night or something. Just try and risk it. Not saying he came through, just go off the board with one of the guys at the bottom that isn't the same value everyone else is using. And I do it in NFL Showdown as well. The more ownership you have, the less salary I would want to use. I'd want to leave more on the table because I think that's when you can get unique still, because nobody wants to leave the money, but you can also still have a lineup that works. And it works really well in Showdown. In Classic Slate, typically I end up spending the money somewhere between 49 and 50K. But if I am stacking a wave or something, I might go to like 48 to 50 and just give me that wave. And whatever I get because I'm stacking for weather and advantages where it's easily that one guy can outscore one guy on any given day that ends up making the cut in Classic or coming through like it did this past Friday in round 2 Showdown.
Yep. Agree with you on that. If you guys could please like and subscribe to this video, it helps us out a ton over here at Run Pure Sports. We appreciate it. Also, if you do subscribe to the channel, you get notified when we go live, and we got tons of shows going live today. So let me go through the schedule for you guys. 4:45, we got the MLB Swing for the Fences show. 6 o'clock, we got the MLB Final Countdown show. 7:15, NBA Showdown. And then we got the Strokes Gain show. I believe that'll be at 9 tonight. So yeah, that's what the schedule says now. It could be 8:30. It changes sometimes. But if you subscribe to the channel, you know what happens? You just get notified when it goes live. So that's what you got to do. Sign up now over at Run Pure Sports. If you have not, like Tambo said, there's a code right now going on. It's PGA50, gets you 50% off your first payment. So sign up now. But let's dive in and talk about the other team, Tambo, like, because this one left $1,300, which it's a great team for sure. Definitely like what you put together there. The other team, it's got some similarities, but you do got a couple guys different. You got Abe Answer on there. You have Max Homa and you have Bubba Watson. And this one ends up leaving $3,000, actually, as crazy as it sounds. So did you plan to have it leave that much money on the table? Like, because I think sometimes people like don't think to leave $3,000, right? Was it the opto that had the min on it? Like, what kind of happened there?
Yeah, great question and a great point, actually. That's exactly what it is. I know Big T talks about this all the time, and it's not about having like the magic settings or clicking the magic button, but using SaberSim, which we have over at Run Pure Sports. You can get that package as well. That's what I use. And I think this was the minimum, actually, Mangone. I think it was 47 to 50 is what I put it at, or maybe 46. I can't remember now, but I definitely put it lower. I think I left up 3,000 or 4,000 that you could leave on the table. And when you make 50 like that, so I curate my pool, right? I get it down to my 32. I had it at 32 guys. I said it on the show at the very end of the round 2 show on Mayo Media Network. I said, I'm counting for you guys. I said, it looks like I got 32 guys here. That's what I'm going to roll with. Then I make sure they all have a minimum of 5% because I want them all to show up in my lineups. And then I'll, go from there and finagle it a little bit and see what I can do. But I set it at a minimum, I think was 46 actually. So maybe I had some with even less, but I didn't really care about that because like I said, when I was stacking a wave, anybody could come through and that would be a way to get unique because that's the thing about this lineup. Like if you look, Bubba was 7,100, Cam Smith, Rory, or any of these guys, Xander, any of those guys in the wave that were more expensive that people were using were easily eligible to go up to with that money. But if you built like this, the system would just automatically leave them out, right? It would just say, we're going to run it like this. If you want me to leave 47 and you're okay with it, we'll give you some of those while you'll still get enough percentage of the guys that you're using to make sure you use your 32 guys. So that's the benefit of an optimizer. It's not that I knew a 47K lineup would come through. I knew it would be unique. I knew it suited the wave advantage. And I knew that like I would leave off some 40% owned guys that would differentiate me even with a 31% Zalatoris, who, funny enough, in the main lineup, I didn't have Bubba. And Zalatoris, I think, was my highest scoring guy. And he's the guy that I always talk shit about. So, but funny enough, Zalatoris came through and won me some cheese, but I'm happy with it either way. And that's exactly how I built it for this week. I got 15th, 21st, 53rd. They don't matter. I'm just saying that's the other thing about the optimizer. When you're cored up like that and you're just using your guys and putting them in different ways and building it out like this, you're going to end up with a lot of bullets that could get to the top and allow for this scenario to even be a possibility.
Yeah. And I'm assuming like the reason why you had left so much salary in the table is like, I'm guessing you just didn't have anyone else to put at like the top, because I know Showdown pricing can get a little bit looser. And when that pricing gets looser, I assume that like all like the ROMs and the shufflers, like all those guys just were not able to land on your teams. Is that correct, Tambo? Just because like all the expensive guys were in the way that you didn't play.
Yeah, a little bit, but actually another thing, and this was discussed on the show, you can go back and check it out, but this lineup was likely another thing I didn't just mention, Mangone, so I'm glad you brought that up, is that I also talked about this, where with about 20% of my lineups, or in my case, 10, I was going to turn off the most expensive guys for my last 10 lineups with the same caps so that it literally couldn't force me to 50K to your point right there. I think it was Cam Smith, Rory, and Xander were like the only three guys above Zalatoris that were in this wave. So I knew if I just turned them off completely, left the same settings in the same group, I would get unique lineups that were under the cap, that could go as low as my minimum was set, that would not have that. And almost nobody would do that, because even of the 42% that built the full wave stack, which the round two stats ended up coming out, my guy Axis_DFS on Twitter, he posts those out. He's buddies with Skyhook DFS, who posts out the ownership on the main slate we always use. And he said 42% stacked the PM on round two. But I know for a fact there's no, like, not only did I stack 100%, but I knew a lot of that 42% would have had one of those three guys at the top. So I made sure just to have 10 builds that would not have any of them.
Yeah, no, that's definitely an interesting way to go about it for sure. And definitely gives some good insight to if you're using the optimizer, different ways that you can get unique, right? Like there's just some small, simple ways that you can do it. Like, and one thing that's nice, Tambo, is like you have the PMAM wave stack, right? Let's say you're on the main slate and you did that. Like from there, you don't have to do too much crazy stuff to be different, right? You've already made some really hard stands for sure. What are some things, can you remember anything from like the main slate that you did that like made your teams different when building? Because I think one thing you're really good at is what you explained there. You understand like how to make like the players within like your player pool unique and different. Was there anything that you did during like the AM PM stacks on the main slate to make your teams different? Or did you just play the AM PM and just kind of roll your teams?
I actually did not commit like some of our other friends did. And I believed in it with them. And I'm glad that, Hoop got on the show on Wednesday with us, the premium. He, Uncle T unfortunately couldn't make it. So it was Big T and I, and then Hoop was willing to hop on, and he sort of talked me into it. And then he dropped it in the Discord later with like another one, just to like jam it down everyone's throat to make sure they remember to play this. So I swapped my mega team. It was going to just be a mix of all the best plays of the week, because there kind of was some game theory after people were committing to this stack, at least at RPS, that the guys like JT, which ended up being the winner, Rom, Scheffler, some of these guys, Fitzpatrick, Lowry, they were all in the quote unquote bad wave. And there was still some game theory to it that they would have been much higher owned if not. A couple of them like Fitzpatrick and JT ended up coming through in a big way. But I said, after Hoop got me on it, I said, I'm going to switch my mega, the 44-44 to an all AM stack. And that worked. But one thing I did with that one, I think it's the best case of example, because in the main, on my MME, I did 70% AM. I did 10% of the invert and 20% of just mixing and matching just to have some coverage. But I was majority AM. I made money there. But the mega, it was Jordan Spieth, Rory at 10K and Jordan Spieth at, I think, 95, 94, 95, something like that. I can't remember the exact number. But anyway, Hovland was 99 and Cam Smith was 9,700. So what I did is I squeezed Rory and Spieth, who I expected to get the highest ownership, by going with Hovland and Smith to try and get the upside of two guys right in the same mix. You could argue, you can't take away anything Scotty's been doing, but you could argue that Cam Smith's had a pretty damn good year with the Players win, other wins, holding off Rahm at the TOC, all these factors. So I liked him. He had, by the way, 11 lip outs and 17 misses from inside 10.5 feet on the week. Some of those overlap, but Cam Smith could not make a putt. So that was hurtful. Hovland just didn't do his job. You know, everyone said he wouldn't come through because of around the green. He gained on around the green, at least for round 4, but, you know, pretty solidly, but it was a lot of missed putts for him. But that was the first thing. And then the second thing, I loved Noren. I had him in my core. I think I had him in 25 or 30% of my MME. Like I had him in some of my main 555 builds or 888. I forget what it was last week, but the mega, I could not do I knew he was pushing 20 to 25% and there was just too many other guys there. So the other move that I did on top of the squeeze at the top was I went off Noren just in that one, and I dropped down to Davis Riley at 6,800. He had a good first 3 days, a bad round 4, but I was basically talking about this, and you can use this in majors, especially at the upcoming U.S. Open, which is just 3 weeks away. So if you were using the code Mangone talked about earlier for RPS PGA 50, that'll get you a month at half price for all sports, but that will include U.S. Open. So I'd suggest going and doing that. But I will say this. You got to bet on talent in these majors. And I remember, you'll probably remember this, man, going, it was back at Chambers Bay, RIP, our boy Head Chopper, love him, but that was a rough scene for him at the end of that Millie Maker. But that's what people remember it in the DFS streets for. But I remember also, I think that was the coming out party for Xander Schauffele. And I think he was like 6,100 and someone won with like 80% of Xander Schauffele. They just went all in on the talent. And that's kind of what I saw in Davis Riley for this event, $6,800. I see him being a lot more expensive at future majors. And I kind of like to bet on that talent going into these. Cam Young, I know he was popular version of this, but at 7,600, people just sort of knew. And that's where the ownership came from on a guy like him.
Yeah. And another guy to deal with was like Mito, right? Mito's a great example of it. Just a guy to bet on like at that price. Like I did that with him. I kind of been doing that with Bobby McIntyre almost every week. I'm just like, hey, Bobby Mac is like down in the low 7 or high 6 range. Like just play him. Like he's been pretty good. He did like struggle on Saturday and Sunday, but yeah, I'm on board with doing that, Tam. I think it's a smart strategy, just buying in on the young, talented guys that you're kind of waiting to pop. And you can sometimes see it happen in the stats too, where you know it's coming and it just takes time sometimes. So yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. So one thing I noticed when looking at some of these other teams, JBC, he actually left same as you. He left like $2,700. So that was interesting. And I was just curious, what other teams like did that? Like JWD, he left 800. So that was interesting. 2,100 was left by Captain Buzzkill. Garns
look at Garns there for a second. Sammy Knoll. Like there's a lot of sharp guys that were up here.
Yep. Hoop had a team up there. Hoop left 2,100. So a lot of the teams did leave like the salary, right? Or like, you know, even leaving 800 still is a good amount to leave. Especially, in Showdown, the price is at least a little looser. So it's one thing I will say, Tambo, and I'm sure you can agree on this. In the Showdown pricing, you can easily leave salary on the table and not worry as much, right? Like you're not worrying about moving the salary too much, correct?
For sure. In Showdown, like that, like it's literally the definition of everything you just said. Like we talked a little bit, but like it's one round. We see it all the time. Like maybe you want to talk about 4 full days of Spieth versus a guy like, Mito, right? And even then Mito beat him. So like that's on 4 full days, forget the meltdown, but little things like that on Showdown on one day, anybody, Peter Malnati can dust Morikawa on one day Showdown or Rahm or anybody. It just doesn't matter. So that's where the leaving the money comes in. It's a double down for you because not only does it basically guarantee you're unique, you're not just unique because you're not going to dupe based on leaving salary, but you probably have like a 2% Malnati in some cases. You know, I think my lineup in 15th, if you look at it, had Bubba at 2% and Rose at 2.4. It had a shot. It had Mito, it had Cam Young, it had Hovland and Spieth. It still didn't have Cam Smith. It still didn't have Rory. It still didn't have Xander. So I still separated at the top. I'm not sure how much I left on the table in that one. You probably got it there.
Yeah, 2,200. You left.
Right. So I was still unique. I still wasn't using all the most popular guys. And then on top of it, it's like you did have 2 leverage plays at the bottom that can get different enough. And that's where I think to like close this thing out, man, going on your topic of the main slate, the classic slate, some of the conversation, I don't care who it was or why, I don't have problems with anybody. I just think, some of the conversation is a little bit funny because it's like, oh, no edge because 14 of the highest, 17 owned guys were from that wave anyway. There was 75 guys plus in the AM wave. Even if you want to tell me it's like the Masters where only so many are in play. Okay, 40 of the 75 were definitely in play in the AM PM wave on classic slate. There was absolutely ways to get unique. You could have left money, like we just talked about, because of the waves. You could have not used Rory a bunch. We talked about this on the Wednesday show where every lineup would pretty much be able to fit Rory because Morikawa, JT, Rahm, and Scheffler were all more expensive and in the other wave. So everyone was landing on Rory. You could have started your teams with Hovland, with Smith. You could have done a bunch of things to get different that way. And then what about all the leverage plays? Hatton, Answer, Harmon, who else? Kirk. All these guys, Davis Riley, all these guys at the bottom that actually played very well. Kirk, I think, ended up on the winning Millie Maker lineup in the $25, if not close. And he was like 2%. There was definitely ways to make your lineups unique while still running that wave, while not worrying about you're getting the advantage, but not the sort of lazy excuse that it's not unique because 14 guys were high owned. You're not playing those 14 guys exclusively, and you're able to choose how you build your lineup. So that's on you if you couldn't figure that out. And we talk about it a lot in our strategy show on Wednesday with exposures, roster construction, all the stuff that people have the hardest time figuring out. That's exactly what we're passionate about and what we love diving into. So I think that's the best part about Run Pure.
Yep, definitely some of the best parts about Run Pure. We got the Discord chat you got to get into. There's a lot of good stuff over here at Run Pure Sports and the chat. We love the chat. Adam G in there. He's having a good time. Todd is in there. TYA5558. He's the one who won the Millie. So congrats to him on winning the Millie. Good win, Todd. We got our boy Uncle T in the chat as well. Uncle T in there. He said he's in here, hanging out with us, supporting the golf show. Also saying that I love myself some Abe Answer, and that is true. I do love myself some Abe Answer. So
he was low owned last week. I know you were a little bit under the weather, but that was like an example perfectly of a guy in the wave that people are just like not in on him. They played Finau above him, which was fine. Finau almost made 2 eagles on the final round. And yeah, love the event, love the chat. Haggie's in there too. And funny enough, those two, I met Todd and Blake Haggie. So Haggie B is in our Discord. Todd's in there as well. And they were both they both made the final round of King of the Beach when I was down there. I was hanging out with those guys. So that's pretty cool. And again, congrats to Todd. Just an absolutely incredible feat to take down the Mega this week. That was awesome. And it ended up being an all AM lineup. So good for him and just a great event overall.
Yeah, it was awesome by him. We got Joey Work in the chat too. Love seeing it. So it's good to sit here and talk with everyone and just have a good time and, try to get better, right? No one's going to complain. Big T was saying it. He had a nice win yesterday, which was awesome to see. Big T took down another, DraftKings, fantasy baseball champion seat. So congrats to him on that. I also want to go through a couple other members that won. We just talked about TYA 555. He won the $1 million. And Wog Show, he won 50K in PGA. Tambo, yourself, we just talked about, you won 125K in PGA. Title, we're going to have him on Thursday. He's going to talk about his MMA win. He took down a live final seat. So congrats to him on that. TMR6, he won he won 27K in NBA and NHL. Rye Guy, he won 10K in PGA using that AM PM stack. And Howitt, he won 3K in MMA. And then Mac2 Services won 10K in the MLB streets. And we also had a bunch of winners last night in the MLB streets as well. So listen, if you're not signed up at Run Pure Sports, use that code PJ50 and get signed up now. Gets you 50% off. Tambo, I guess we talked on the lineup for a little bit. I know you've already talked some golf with some people. Let's just do a quick, just running through the pricing, running through some of the players. We don't have to go too in depth. We got about 13 minutes. So let's kind of start there. And I'm going to pull up the pricing here on my end, and we'll talk about the different golfers that we got for the field. So like I said before, Tambo, it's a big event, right? It's there's a lot of golfers here. It's just down the road. People are probably using this as like a prelim event, I'm guessing, like you said. And then they might maybe take a week or two off and then go right to like the next championship field. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, they got to stay fresh. Memorial is next week. So that's like a huge event. If you remember, obviously the Memorial situation last year was Rahm leading by 6 strokes after 3 rounds to get told on the final green, which was ridiculous, that he tested positive for COVID and had to withdraw from the tournament, which Cantlay then goes on to win. Definitely made Sunday a little bit tighter of a leaderboard, but Rahm was running away with that thing. And it is a very tough course, a very coveted event that a lot of people want to win. So this is going to be a tune-up. A lot of these guys will be at the Memorial, and I think this is a good spot to get after it. This field is very strong, man. Going 484. I know everyone makes fun. Here's the thing about official world golf rankings. It's a joke. There's a lot of issues with it that need fixed. But one of the things that I think is true to live by is the strength of field factor, because that's at least apples to apples. And that's all we care about is how strong is the field. 484 is a really strong field. I'm trying to think, like, going back, it's much stronger than even the Byron Nelson was to go back. Like, for example, the Players is an 800. This is almost a 500. Arnold Palmer, which is a very tough field. Scotty Scheffler won that over Hovland and guys, was a 533. So that gives you an example of just how tough of a field this is going to be. And I'm excited for it. It's loaded, and it doesn't look like the withdrawals are coming. It looks like everyone is going to play it out. And so you'll have to make the decisions in your lineups about a lot of stuff, right? Even at the top, Scheffler off a miscut, JT off the win, Morikawa, whatever. Spieth did not get the career Grand Slam yet, and watched his good buddy Justin Thomas go ship the event that he would so love to take down for a second time. JT takes it down, and he just needs one of them to complete that career Grand Slam. And then Willie Z is up there off of a playoff loss, another playoff loss earlier in the season at Farmers, lost to Luke List. So just crazy to think about just the top range in general, and you still have Hovland and Morikawa in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely loaded up top for sure. And like, hey, it feels like Morikawa. Like, people won't really want to go to him just because, like, hey, you got Jay. I mean, people do hate playing the winner, right? Like a second time in a row. So I am curious to see how the ownership all shakes out, how it all went. And it's also now 10. Is this the first time Willie Zalatoris is over 10K, Tambo?
I think it is, actually. Yeah. Usually, I'm not sure if you can pull it up when you pull his game log up and just scroll to the far right and see down. I don't have it in front of me, Mangone. I know you got it there.
But I'm looking. It doesn't say it here, but it does feel like it's the first time he's above 10K.
It might be in the app, but I'll check it out. Go ahead anyway. Yeah, we can keep talking about it. I think it's going to be a fun event for sure, just based on let me get your take on this. I know you're the host. I'm taking over, but I had this conversation with a couple of people, and they don't agree with me, so maybe I'm way wrong here, but don't you feel like there's a little bit of a major hangover for daily fantasy players? Like, they either had a lot of money in, there was a lot of conversation around waves and, just everything going on with it. It's almost like they kind of want to break this week. And I just feel like everyone's talking about the same guys. Like, I posted my usual Tuesday, the range, like, of who guys, like, it's tough to pick. Who would your top 3 be? I think like 8 out of 10 are saying the same person. It's like 80% of the people are on the same 3 guys. It just feels like there's going to be a lot more congested ownership versus last week at the major with softer pricing. You basically had everyone at 15% with some guys at 20 and 25.
No, I could see people getting a little lazier just because it's like a long weekend. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like people, like, they're more plugged in than normal. Like, some weekends people just punt off the golf and don't watch it as much, but they still have stuff in play, but they're not watching, like, but it's the major, right? People love watching majors. So I could see that a little bit. And actually, we'll get to that. I actually pulled it up already, but we'll talk about that range of golfers shortly. I want to ask you real
quick. Zalatoris 10-5 at the Zozo and played horribly, 54th place.
All right. Interesting. The one thing I do always think there's like some kind of hangover for these players, but it is interesting, this setup that you have, because it's like a tune up, like, for Memorial, and then you have the major. So, like, this does feel like a spot where maybe they have to grind. Maybe it's not just, hey, we're punting off an event, we're just because it's down the street, they're going to it, and they might just punt it completely. It does feel like you're going to get their best, at least. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that golfers ever are just like, okay, I'm going to this event and I'm punting completely. They're not just doing the Daniel Berger go off the tee and tee it off and just walk away. But it does feel like there's some events where there's not a lot of guys at, like studs. And it does feel like, DJ magically, at that Minnesota event, just magically missed the cut when, like, he was close to the line. Like, I don't know. God. Sometimes it's a little fishy for sure. Right, Tambo?
Pumps it in the water on, like, a hole that's impossible to bogey, even if you go in the water. So he knew the only way he could miss that cut was to pump it in the water, and he does off the tee, and then misses like a 6-footer. He pushes it. It's like, okay, DJ, just tell us that you want to go home. Tell me you want to go home without telling me you want to go home. That's basically what he did on that 18th hole. Pretty funny.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was funny. I will say the 9K range, like, there's some good golfers here, but it is like Max Homa at 9-4. I'm still not used to, right? Sam Burns 9-7. We've seen it there, but like, man, these are definitely some names that like they'll get the 9K treatment. They'll get 10K sometimes, but it does feel like the gap between the 9K and 10K guys is like a big enough gap where you might see people jamming 2 guys above 10K. Could you kind of see that happening, Tambo? Instead of
definitely can. I've already built some myself. I talked a little bit about it yesterday. I think an interesting one would be like either a Morikawa Zalatoris, if you want to just play ball strikers, or you want to play like a Morikawa Hovland, Zalatoris Hovland. I think it's tough to go. It's not tough to do. I'm just saying, but like Scotty JT almost needs to be like a showdown, like not showdown slate. I'm talking like if you're playing 2 guys over 11K, you pretty much need that. We always say against this. It's usually when you're saying the top guy needs to win. That's not true. He needs to beat the guys around him. But I think if you're wasting that much, not wasting, but playing that much of your salary on 2 11K guys, you almost need to see them sort of leave the field a little bit and have sort of a showdown over the weekend where they rack up that many points that others don't. And then you still need to get so much right with your 4 other punts that it really makes it difficult for me to see that lineup construction work out. I prefer something more like a Zalatoris Hovland where you're down at 10-1 and 10. That's still $2,000 plus that you can use. That's 2 6K guys up to 2 7K guys, or 2 6,900 up to 2 7,900. It's a big difference for me. So I prefer to build that way this week.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. Guys, if you could please like and subscribe to this video. It helps us out a ton over here at Run Pure Sports. And also we got a code going on over here called it's PGA 50, get you 50% off your first payment. So if you, like Tambo was saying before, if you sign up now, let's say you're a golf guy, get you 50% off your first month. And then, hey, you get to use this all the way up until even past the next PGA event, the major. And we don't just have these sports, right? We have NBA, we have MLB, we got all the shows. We got a ton of shows that are going to be on today. Tonight, we got 4:45. We got the MLB Swing for the Fences show here on the YouTube channel. Then we got 6 o'clock. We got the MLB Final Countdown show. Then we got the NBA Showdown show. That'll be at 7:15. And then the Strokes Gain show. That'll be at 9 o'clock tonight. So you do not want to miss out on all of that. Tambo, let's talk about the 8K range quick, because I noticed Bryson was in there, and I was shocked because you talk about guys that could WD. He said he wanted to be right. So do you think he's going to be right for this event where he's actually going to stay? Also, this does feel like kind of a dead range. Do people want to pay 8.6 for Mito? Do they want to pay an 8.7 Webb Simpson, an 8.8 Tommy Fleetwood, an 8.9 Taylor Gooch? The 8K range to me feels like the range where people are going to really feel uncomfortable rostering a lot of golfers. Would you agree or disagree?
It feels like both, like the 9K range we just talked about and the 8K. It looks like people, like you said, will want to play 2 guys up top. I do agree that the 10K and up is better than the 9K down, like 9K up to 9,700. So definitely could see that. And then even the 8K range, it's tough because I think people will like Fleetwood. He just played very well at the major. People think he's coming around. They're mentioning him. We'll see what his ownership gets to. So that's interesting. I don't think people are going to play Mito. From what I'm hearing, like this is Mito Molinari, like he's never going to come back from this. The ghost of his soul is gone, like everything. He's just done, they said, at age 27. He'll never come back from it. So I'm going to play some Mito. I don't care. I think him doing that interview and smiling and laughing after it, sort of like laughing at himself. Sure, maybe he cried later in his hotel room. It's tough. It sucks. I don't claim to be like that, but I think for anyone who plays daily fantasy at any type of high level, I definitely could have had that 125K ripped away by 85,000 if Cam Young misses a 4-foot putt at the end. And you could say what it is, but we're into these streets as far as we are and playing as competitively and daily, day in, day out. That's a huge difference for me between getting those top 2 spots and getting second and third. It's just massive. And so you have to take something away from it. You have to have a good mental state. And that has happened plenty of other times. I talked about it all season. That's why I couldn't get over the hump and close one out. Mito's going to come back from it. I think he's going to learn something from it. And not just how well you can play and you can get to the 72nd hole with a chance to win a major at your second ever major, but also to see, like, if he takes away anything, I think it's more that a guy like JT with the experience that's been in that spot before can come back from 7 strokes and win a major on a sudden. Like, there's just huge mental things to be taken away from an event like that. So I actually don't have a problem with Mito. I like Horschel. I like Riley. And I don't think, to answer your original question, I think we will see a late withdrawal, not after lock, but I think we could see later today or tomorrow where Bryson says one more event or something and maybe tries to come out for the Memorial next week. But Texas, I'm not sure. He could show up and play. If he plays, I have no interest. I will definitely make him show me first. I don't care if he's low. He'll be low owned no matter what. So you can say you'll get your leverage. I definitely want to see something from him. And I don't even think the course sets up that well for him personally. So we'll have to wait and see with Bryson, but I still think we could see a WD here shortly.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's reason to be concerned. So you got to kind of wait and see with that, in my opinion. I do want to talk about this top range that you were, this top 7K. So you alluded to it, and then we'll get on out of here. You got to go, but I want to talk about the Woodland, Kirk, Varner, Harmon, Rose, and Munoz. You were saying this is a range. What your tweet? I'm pulling it up now.
Yeah, I said this is like the quote unquote the range. Like this is where I think people are going to have to make or break here. I think this is sort of the decision making spot. And I talked about a little bit on the Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast last night with Kenny Kim on the Mayo Media Network. You can go check that out. It's free. But I said, like, this reminds me of Noren last week, and not just Noren the play at the percentage. That's results based. I'm talking about that was definitely a decision point. There was him. There was Bobby Mack. There was Harmon. There was Kirk. There was Hoagie right above. And there was Riley. That was they were all in the wave. They were all decent plays, but for some reason, by the very end of the week, and I was guilty of it, I had him in my core. I loved Noren because I thought about the weekend. I thought if he can get to the weekend, I want someone like him grinding out for me. If I had known he was going to be 30% and Harmon was going to be 3%, that would be a big difference. Not because of the result. That's like 10-1 on a matchup, basically, that you're getting. And to me, that's how I see this range. It's hard for me to say without ownership yet, but like everyone seems to like Woodland. Everyone seems to like Harmon, Munoz, Varner, sort of those 4. Some people are getting off the board with Rose, and some people like the odds of Kirk. I mean, that's really what it shakes down to from what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. Obviously, ownership is going to matter. People, once they see what the ownership is, then you might have the game theory coming where people are, maybe getting more off a guy, and then maybe the ownership evens out. So it's always an interesting thing to see how it all plays out throughout the week. Also, weather could come into play. There's so many different factors that can
We're in Texas, man. Weather's always a factor in Texas. So I think, like you said, that's key, though. This range is sort of game theory wise. They're all similar enough that I don't think you have to play the higher owned one. And then on top of it, too, just like we talked about earlier with my mega with the Noren situation, even though I loved him on the slate, it was like if I can't play all that stuff together. So it was like sometimes just skipping a range completely and alleviating yourselves of that FOMO or fear of missing out of this range and just say, look, one of these guys probably does come through, but maybe I can still get there if I just avoid the range completely and build my lineups differently. And that's how I look to do it going into the slate.
Yeah, that's what I did last week, Tim. I avoided like that high 7K range. Like I played the AM PM and I just didn't even touch guys in that, but I was dealing with the COVID and I was like, I only played one team and I was like dying. So I was like, yeah, not in the mood to really grind this out. So I just thought it was an easy strategy to do and it worked out. So took some money home, move on to next week. And that's what we're doing here. Hopefully we can get some winners at the top. If you sign up for Run Pure Sports right now, use that code PGA50, get you 50% off and you get all the core plays when they come out on Wednesday, the playbook, all the shows that we got over here at Run Pure. You get to see Tambo on Wednesdays. He's on there with Big T and Uncle T. They break it all down, but we got to get on out of here. I know Tambo's got a lot to do. Tambo, tell the people, where they can find you the rest of the week, the rest of the shows you got for us here.
So I talked about the Fantasy Golf Degenerates. That's already out on the Mayo Media Network. Mayo himself dropped, him and I did the DraftKings first look yesterday. So that's also on his channel at the PME on Twitter. He posted it out there. You can go to his YouTube on the Mayo Media Network. And then I'll have my tidbits out tomorrow morning on my Twitter. If you don't follow me there, at Tag and Tambo. And then excited. Like I said, if you're not on RPS, use the code Mangone said it. It's obviously RPS is us and the show we're talking about on. It's our thing. But I'm saying, like, if you're not on there, you get a month for half price, all sports, and you're going to get the next major. The Memorial is a huge tournament coming up next week. The RBC Canadian Open, just so much golf. And the Wednesday show is the key show. Myself, Big T, Uncle T, others that hop on, everyone there is going to break it down when we have final ownership, when we know what roster construction looks like. It's all the best stuff that you're going to want to get. So get on board at Run Pure Sports. Use promo code PGA50.
Yep. Sign up now. Also like and subscribe to this video. That way you can check out when the next show goes live. And that next show is 4:45 Eastern. It's the MLB Swing for the Fences show. So be sure to check that out. But we got to get on out of here. Thanks a lot for joining us. For me, Mangone and Tambo. We will see you guys later.